Curator of Collections here at Oglethorpe, and I'm also the curator of the Saucy exhibition. So this is a little something I've put together over the last 3 years. Hope you enjoy it. I just want to say right off, our very next lecture will be on February 15th, and that will be Philip and Matt Malthrop speaking about the beautiful exhibition in this gallery, which Elizabeth Peterson curated, our director is here. March 15th, Stephanie Height, curator of American art at the Heim Museum, will be speaking on the art scene of New York from the 1890s to the 1910s, when Hattie first arrived. I should also want to say, just a bit selfishly, today is my 4-year anniversary here at Oglethorpe, and I'm very happy that I'm here. I'm happy that Elizabeth hired me 4 years ago. And as I said the night of the opening reception, I haven't worked a day since I got here because I love what I do. I'm very fortunate. I give thanks to many of you because of that. Erin Corrales-Diaz, as I've mentioned, is the curator of the Johnson Collection. And for those of you who may not be quite familiar with the Johnson Collection, they have been described as a quiet art historical revolution. George Johnson and Susan Pfeiffer Johnson began in 2002 collecting works of art related to the Carolinas because of their love of that region. And in the past 15 years, they've acquired more than 1,000 works of Southern American art under the stewardship of their staff, including Erin Corrales-Diaz. So anytime we think of great collections of Southern American art, we think of the Johnson Collection as the benchmark. And we are very privileged to have 2 incredible works by Hattie Saucy from the Johnson Collection in this exhibition. Unfortunately, they will not be traveling on to Savannah and Augusta. They're destined for other things possibly, but we're very happy that they'll be here in Atlanta until June. Dr. Erin Corrales-Diaz is a native of Washington State. She earned her bachelor's degree from the University of Washington in Seattle, her master's from Williams College, and her PhD from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Her dissertation is entitled Remembering the Veteran, Disability, Trauma, and the Civil War, 1861 to 1915. She's a very impressive CV, so bear with me. She has enjoyed numerous fellowships, including the Winchester Museum, the Smithsonian American Art Museum, the Library of Congress, the Shelburne Museum, and the Huntington Library. The Huntington is one of the finest independent research libraries in the country. They also have the Huntington's mansion on the grounds, and they have a very famous Blue Boy by Gainsborough, as well as Pinky by Lawrence. Right. But more recently, Dr. Corrales-Diaz was appointed curator of the Johnson Collection a year and a half ago, and she also serves as the visiting scholar at both Wofford College and Converse College, where she teaches on the subjects of American Southern art. We're very fortunate to have with us this evening Dr. Erin Corrales-Diaz.
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction and for inviting me to speak here tonight. When John had asked if I would talk about Southern women artists, I have to say I jumped at the chance. And this is because the Johnson Collection has embarked on an innovative study of the achievements and the legacies of women artists working in and inspired by the American South. And so what you're going to hear tonight is a little sort of sneak peek. It's a preview of what I've been working on for the past year and a half. So in an interview in the 1970s, Hattie Saucy noted the immense changes in art education from the late 19th to the early 20th centuries. Tracing her career back to her childhood art classes, the first in the Savannah public school system, with local artist and art educator Lila Cabaness, Saucy recalled that when she, quote, was young and was learning about art, the teacher generally put emphasis upon producing something. Saucy was trained in the traditional academic manner of learning through emulation and sequential, rigorous courses, which seemed at odds with the late 20th century art education that privileged individual expression without strict supervision. Yet this dramatic shift away from the rigid academy was largely a result of a growing women's presence in the American art world. These women artists, like Saucy, fought a system of prejudice and oppression against their gender, overcoming immense hurdles to pursue careers in the arts. So art historian Kirsten Swinth estimates that between the early 1860s to the 1890s, women claiming to be in an arts-related position rose by over 2,000%. It was an immense jump. And so through these early pioneering efforts, women disrupted entrenched beliefs about art and culture, ultimately paving the way for someone like Saucy to even consider such an occupation. That said, professional women artists were still a minority, especially in the South, where an artistic career seemed unattainable, as the conservative ideology of Southern womanhood dictated that they must set aside their creativity for societal constraints and expectations as wife and mother. Nevertheless, several Southern women persevered in this oppressive environment, demonstrating a remarkable tenacity and determination in their quest to create. So tonight, we will be exploring how these women artists of the South challenged the normative image of the professional artist as male and revised pedagogical practices to foster future generations of women artists. During the 19th and early 20th century, Americans, both male and female, sought art instruction abroad, especially in Paris. And this was due to the limited resources in the States, as well as an aesthetic preference for European academic painting. Now, the pillar of such training was at the prestigious and French government-sanctioned École des Beaux-Arts. Yet women were not admitted to that school until 1897. So critics argued at this time that the regimented training over long hours was too much for women, ultimately registering academic art study as masculine. So, as such, droves of prospective women artists sought instruction at alternative ateliers in Paris, those that had minimal entry requirements, and most importantly, they accepted women. And one commentator described these new opportunities, writing, quote, "The atelier for women is truly a fortress of the Amazons." So the most well-known of these independent studios, the Académies Julienne, a group of students from there are represented here, and the Corrales-Diaz, taught the academic model of the école with the focus on a human figure. They offered classes for women, but at a cost higher than the tuition charged for male students. In fact, one Académies Julienne student, Ellen Day Hale, recounted, and I quote her here, "Julien, who likes his money, is very glad of his women's classes, which pay him twice as much as the men's." Yet despite of this inequality, women continued to flock to Paris from all over the United States, North and South, as long as they had the money to pay and tolerated the patronizing attitude of the male students and instructors. And indeed, many of the Southern women who attended Parisian ateliers came from wealthy backgrounds and with the support of their families. So such was the case with the Alabamian Clara Weaver Parrish. She grew up on her family's plantation near Selma, where she and her siblings developed their artistic skills and talents. And encouraged by her parents, she went to Paris in the early 1880s and would embark on another trip in the early 20th century when she enrolled at the Académie Colarossi, studying with the renowned instructors Gustave Courtois and Raphael Collin. And it would be the latter that motivated Parrish to embrace the modern style of Impressionism, which favored painting out of doors, or in plein air, and subjects of everyday life. So in essence, this was a rejection of that academic model and methods taught at the école. So heeding her teacher's advice, Parrish posed models outdoors for portraits and figure studies, captured in this photograph of her at work on Girl with a Pumpkin. And I do apologize for the quality of this image. So Parrish is at an easel under an umbrella, and she embraces the natural light for a brighter, more luminous palette in her painting. Now the final product, or painting rather, it's currently unlocated, which is why it's in black and white, depicts her model in a moment of repose alongside a bountiful harvest. Parrish also adopted the Impressionist passion for painting gardens, and she often recorded charming floral vignettes in nearby villages, such as in the Flower Garden. By employing the Impressionist compositional techniques, loose brushwork, and experimental palette, Parrish captures the delicate nature and dazzling beauty of a garden. It is no coincidence that women artists seeking to disrupt the patriarchal art world embraced Impressionism, a movement built on resisting a conservative art establishment. Parrish was not the only Southerner taken with Impressionist fondness for capturing modern life and the fleeting beauty of gardens. South Carolinian Blundell Malone traveled all over the world in a conscious effort to learn her craft, ending up in Paris first in 1904 and again in 1910. Determined to obtain the best education possible, she boldly reached out to the reclusive Claude Monet and received access to paint in his exclusive gardens, despite his less than enthusiastic response. And this is what Monet had to say to Malone, and I quote him here: "What you ask me for annoys me, I must confess." Yet you still let her in, right? She eagerly recounted the experience to her parents in a letter, quote, "He refuses to see everyone, especially Americans and artists, and he is quite right. He told me he did not like to see people, and I was the only one he had received in years. I asked him why he received me, and he was interested." Garden Scene represents Malone's culmination of her studies of French Impressionism with its thick impasto, deliberate, limited range of colors, and a concentration on the optical effects of sunlight. She would take these impressionistic approaches back to the South, where she would continue to paint out of doors, earning her the moniker, the Garden Artist of America. While Malone and Parrish both used their families' financial resources to access the educational opportunities abroad, a privilege that many women lacked, they nevertheless revised Southern notions of womanhood in order to become a part of the professional art world. So Malone never married. Although she had numerous suitors, Malone remained singularly dedicated to her creative practice, stating that, quote, "Painting is in many ways like love. There is more pain than pleasure." She resented the expectation that women would abandon part of their livelihood or individuality for marriage, writing to her mother in a letter, quote, "The more I see of married life, the gladder I am that I am single. For the minute a girl is married, she gets into a rut and never advances an inch." Now, Parrish, however, managed to navigate the difficulties of balancing her home life with a career in the arts, actively painting in her New York studio and participating in exhibitions. She married in 1887 and had one daughter, but both tragically died, leaving Parrish a widow and alone at the age of 40. At that time, she became an associate of Louis Comfort Tiffany's company, specializing in stained glass windows for homes and churches, and you see her at work on one of those right now. But she longed for the South and was determined to quit New York and return to Alabama in order to establish an art museum and studio. Unfortunately, she died before that goal could be obtained. Not all women had the financial support as Parrish or Malone to study art in Paris. A 3-year scholarship was necessary for Tennessean Willie Betty Newman to enroll at the Académie Julienne. While in Paris, she was swayed by the more modern Impressionism over traditional academic painting. And this is particularly evident in French poplar Trees in the Mist, where the canvas is marked with a vigorous application of paint and an opalescent spectrum of saturated pigments. Yet Newman was loath to be called an impressionist, preferring instead to be, quote, an artist of the new school. This rejection of labels likely stemmed from her own experiences when critics unfairly categorized her work as representative of her gender rather than of quality. So writing for the Nashville Banner, one such critic revealed his art world standard as masculine when reviewing Newman's paintings, stating, Quote, of many of her pictures, it is difficult to believe that they are of the artistic production of a woman. But there is always, nevertheless, a delicacy of feeling and beauty of sentiment that are distinctly feminine. Aware of this pervasive bias against professional female artists, Newman regularly signed her paintings W.B. Newman in order to mask her identity, and also curiously retaining her estranged husband's last name, Newman, as well. She's quite the character, really good Newman. And so this signature, though, can be seen in red at the bottom in this painting. When she returned to Nashville in 1902, the city was ill-prepared for a female Parisian-trained genre and landscape painter. So reflecting the more conservative Southern taste, portraiture was an accepted avenue, especially for a woman, and so Newman made a career painting likenesses of area politicians and wealthy local residents represented here with Anna Virginia Russell Cole. In spite of her strong association with France, Newman was an advocate for Southern art, and I quote her here. I believe that the South is the natural and logical home of all true art, and that God so intended it to be. Not only on account of the temperaments of the people, but all the environments of Dixie are artistic. Nowhere do the flowers bloom more beautifully, the trees and grass more luxuriant, nor the sunlight more healthful than in this fair Southland. To this end, Newman opened the Newman School of Art in October 1905, basing its curriculum after her instruction at the Académie Julienne. Now, in an effort to make art education more accessible, especially to women, classes at the school were offered free of charge, an altruistic decision that ultimately spelled the school's closure due to financial difficulties. Even at the expense of studying art abroad, women like Newman continued to seek out an arts education across the Atlantic. Perhaps it was, as May Alcott Nieriker, and yes, that is the sister of the Louisa May Alcott, wrote in Studying Art Abroad and How to Do It Cheaply from 1879. I quote her here. There is no art world like Paris, no painters like the French, and no incentive to do good work equal to that found in a Paris atelier. In addition to the technical skills and networking opportunities acquired at the foreign art studios, these ateliers often allowed women artists access to a crucial component of art education, the nude model. So this is best encapsulated by Académie Julienne student Marie Bashkirchev's 1881 work in the studio. Life drawing classes for women reimagined the biased conditions in the art world. She declared in her diary, quote, "Our studio now enjoys the same advantages as the studio of the men. That is to say, we draw from the nude every day, from the same model in the same pose they do. Consequently, we can now paint compositions of more importance than before." The lure of life drawing classes prompted George and Lucy May Stanton to study in Paris, captured in this 1896 photograph. And so Stanton is right here. That women were now able to work directly from the nude, and from the same nude who posed for the men, marked a singular advance in the education of female artists and made the Académie a powerful magnet for women who sought serious training in the visual arts. Despite the equalizing aspects of art education, Stanton still felt the stigma of being an independent female artist in a male-dominated art world, especially after her return to Georgia. In 1910, she wrote in her diary, articulating her feelings of isolation and dissatisfaction. And I quote her here, "The artist is often a complete type. Therefore, he lives a lonely life, dies in poverty, desolation, having no children to carry forward his personality. His ideals in the highest life never quite fit these." Now, astonishingly, Stanton, despite being a professional artist, uses a masculine pronoun as if she is unable to conceptualize the artist as female, even in her own diary. So clearly reconciling her beliefs of life as an artist with the prevailing ideology of Southern womanhood proved more complicated than she had anticipated. And these were emotions that were far from singular among other women artists of the period. By the late 19th century, the increased enrollment at foreign art institutions also fostered the growth of American academies, though these were largely in northern cities such as New York, Boston, Chicago. The demand for stateside training enabled thousands upon thousands of girl art students, according to one account, to advance their skills in a competitive market. And I know Stephanie from the High will be talking much more about this in greater detail later. But the National Academy of Design in New York City, one of the few extant pre-Civil War art schools, was the preeminent American art institution that based its teaching principles on the academic training found at the Parisian École de Beaux-Arts. Yet in a post-Civil War era, many American students, influenced by modern European developments, felt that the Academy's instruction was too conservative and unsympathetic to their new ideas about art. And in 1875, a group of artists formed the alternative school, the Art Students League, a revolt that mirrored the French Impressionist rejection of conservative